Many times when you are following Jesus, he leads you right into a storm. Can I get a witness? Anybody out there that can testify to that? I don't care if you've been following God for 3 days or 3 decades. You have found yourself, or you will at some point, you will find yourself in a storm. But we know that we serve a God of purpose, and he uses everything to develop us, to teach us. And that's what this really is all about. So I'm excited about Jesus walking on water and to talk a little bit about it. We're actually coming out of Matthew 14. Now, I'm just now learning the importance of context. So even though this story is good, and it's good, like stay with me, y'all. I have to let you know what happens before. It's almost like a dramatic story. Like if a friend comes to you and they want to tell you about somebody that got into a fight or argument, and they're like, hold up. Let me tell you how it all went down. Let me tell you how this started. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. Again, not a preacher, not a pastor, not a minister, just a woman that needs a word. Okay. I need this word. And I hope that this word blesses you. Again, Matthew 14. So before we get into Jesus walking on water, and again, I'm going to give you the 3 principles. How can you apply this in your life? And I'm going to tell you what I learned from listening to Pastor Steven Furtick. I mean, the principles at the end are hot. Do not miss those. Do not miss those. So let me give you a little context here. In Matthew 14, it starts off here by letting us know that John the Baptist has been beheaded. Now, we know that this pains God, that this hurts God, right? So we can assume the state that he's in right now. Right after that, it goes into the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. And this is where it gets good. This is where it gets good because I said, what led them to this storm? Like, why this, Jesus? Why'd you have to put them on the boat? Why did they have to be in a storm? Why'd you walk out on water? Why did you have Peter? I mean, why? Why? And I think I found out my reason why. So, if you know the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000, I'm going to tell you how it goes down a little bit. And then we're going to get into our context for tonight. So, the disciples come to Jesus. And they basically say, look, it's a lot of people out here and they hungry. Okay? They want food and we don't have enough to feed them. So guess what, Jesus? We'll take care of this. We'll just send them away. They're hungry. They need to be fed. We're going to send them away. This is what Jesus says to them. We're in Matthew 14 and I'm just kind of bouncing up here. Matthew 14:16 says, but Jesus said to them, they do not need to go away. They do not need to go away. We're going to come back to that. You give them something to eat. So let me ask you something. If Jesus tells you to do something, what are you going to do? If Jesus gave you this command, look, I would have been out there trying to break up bread into crouton sized pieces. Just because, hey, Jesus told me to do it, I'm going to do it. I don't know. Everybody going to get a bone. Somebody going to get an eyeball. I don't know. But we feeding these people. He says, you give them something to eat. He wasn't talking about food. I don't know. You feed them. That's what he's saying. What are you asking me to do? And then he said to them, and then they said to Jesus, we have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish. So now Jesus is like, okay, deficit. Y'all need to learn something. So I got a lesson. I got a storm that's coming. That's going to teach you everything you need to know about me. All right. So then Jesus says, basically, bring them to me. And he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass. He took the 5 loaves. He took the fish. He blessed them. He did all that, right? Everybody was fulfilled. They had more than they needed. Okay. As soon as we get to this verse 22, this is what it said. And I highlighted this. We getting there, y'all. Stay with me. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side. Immediately. Highlight that. Write that down. I'm feeling some type of way right here with Jesus. I'm catching a little vibe that he's irritated by them. It's almost like you upsetting a parent and knowing you're going to get in trouble when you get home. He's like, oh yeah, it's coming. Soon as these people gone, all right, y'all going to get it. Immediately. All right, so now I'm going to read a little bit and then I'm going to give you these principles, right? This is just too good. It's too good. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. So he sent the disciples away first. And when he sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now, when the evening came, so we basically know this he been there all day. It's night now. He was there alone. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by waves. So it's a storm now, okay? For the wind was contrary. Now in the fourth watch, underline that, highlight that word fourth watch. We're going to talk about that. The fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And the disciples saw him walking on the sea and they were troubled. You know what they said? That ain't nothing but the devil. No, that's not what they said. But they said, it's a ghost. They said, it's a ghost. And they cried out in fear. Let's go back to 22 because I want you to get this. I don't want you to miss this. And when the disciples saw him, it didn't say when the disciples saw a ghost. It says when the disciples saw him, they were troubled. It's a ghost. They didn't even listen. Okay. But immediately Jesus spoke to them by saying, be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water. So he said, come. And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, it was crazy, okay? He was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, O you of little faith. Underline that little faith. He said, why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. The storm did not stop when Jesus showed up. Whew! The rest of the disciples was in the boat, freaked out. Even when Jesus said who he was, even when Peter was coming out to him, they were still in the storm. So sometimes we think that we're in a storm by ourselves. Jesus is with us in it. He don't send the storm and be like, hey, good luck. Don't forget to write. He's there. He's there in the midst of the storm. That's not even my point, but I didn't want to miss that. I didn't want you to miss that. Okay, let's get into these points. Now I'll wrap up. The first thing that I want you to know when you're in a storm is blame does not get you through a storm. Blame actually doesn't get you through anything. Nothing. Remember I said in another video, Wayne Dyer said that there are no justified resentments. A lot of times we trying to justify and figure out and who can we blame and why am I here? That's not going to get you through the storm. Certain storms are unavoidable. And I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but I want to give a shout out again, Steven Furtick. There is a sermon that he has out, and I took some of these points from his sermon, okay? Certain storms that you go through in your life, you will not be able to avoid. And there's a reason why. And I'm going to say that at the end. Ooh, that's good. Stop trying to spend time getting out. I need to hear that. Stop trying to spend all your time, effort, energy, resources to get out of the storm. Spend your time understanding what you need to learn and who you need to become in the midst of the storm. Spend time allowing whatever God is trying to do in your life. Take this least resistant path, because that's when we grow. That's when we change. That's when we evolve. When we stop trying to do and stop trying to figure it out and just allow God to have his way. Not my will, but your will be done. Your will, God. Number 2, God's timing is designed to teach you to trust. Pastor Stephen Furtick said, God's goal is not always to comfort us. And you might be going through something right now and you're like, God, I just need to be comforted. And he doesn't want to comfort us. He wants to change us. That's why we're in the storm. This storm is not designed to give you relief. It is designed to give you a revelation. It is designed so that you can see God differently. The reason that God put the disciples on the boat was he was like, some of y'all don't believe who I am. Some of you don't believe in my power. Some of you don't have faith. Some of you need to learn not just about who you are, but who I am. He saw a deficit. And Pastor Stephen Furtick was saying that when he actually went to the mountain, the actual physical mountain where they say Jesus was, when he went up to pray, he said, if you stood right there where they say Jesus was, he could see the boat from the mountain. Remember, they're on the 4th watch. I don't know a lot about fishing. I would love to go out and fish one day. I want to be on the 4th watch. Okay? Be on the 1st watch. So what the watches mean is basically these are like segments of time. So the 1st watch is like early in the morning, probably like 5 a.m. to 10. And then the 2nd watch is like 11 to 3. And the 3rd watch is like 5. But anyways, this 4th watch, it says, is from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. So when you first go out and you're fishing, you're excited. You're excited, you're eager, you're motivated, all this kind of stuff. Not on the 4th watch. So the mountain that Jesus prayed on gave him a clear view of the disciples. Don't think that God is not with you. Don't think that God doesn't see you. He's there. He's been there the whole time. He was there watching them the whole time. Why didn't he come? You probably thinking that. Why doesn't Jesus come for me? Why doesn't Jesus turn this situation around? Why is it taking so long? Why do I have to endure this? Because if Jesus would have came on the 1st watch, they wouldn't have learned things about him that they had never learned before. They wouldn't have seen things that they had never seen before. Right? They wouldn't have developed the faith that they needed. Number 3, God will bring a test before he brings us a lesson. And one of my friends who's a trainer with me, she was talking about the purpose of a test. And she said like a test is designed to assess your capacity, to see where you're at. And a test can be very beneficial because it actually gives you direction. A test gives you direction. It lets you know where to put your emphasis and where to put your focus, right? Where you need work. You might not need work in all the areas. You may only need work in 1 or 2. So the test is going to reveal that. It's going to provide you with a revelation. It's going to reveal your weaknesses. It's going to reveal deficits. It tells God exactly where he needs to do work. And many times the lesson that we need to learn is in the test. It actually is. It doesn't have to come after. It comes within. Now, when Peter walks out and he's on the water, and then he starts to doubt, Jesus says, "Oh, ye of little faith." And a lot of people think, oh, that's such a bad thing. It's not. It's not, because the Bible tells us that, or God tells us that all we need is the faith of a what? A mustard seed. Y'all know how small a mustard seed is? I don't even have nothing in here this small to show you. It's tiny. It's like a peppercorn. It's tiny. And God's saying that's all you need. It's not the quantity of your faith, it's the quality of your faith. He had faith. He had faith. He believed because he stepped out. But God wanted to develop more in him. And sometimes he wants to develop more in us. All right. Last point here. And I want to give a shout out to my friend Reggie, who actually told me this once, and it stuck with me. So my last point is, God is not always on time, because he's not always on our time. And my friend Reggie said, God is time. He is time. Jesus sat there and he watched them the entire time. The first leg, when they're hopeful, when they're energetic, when they're optimistic. And maybe that's how you felt when this storm first hit you. You're like, oh yeah, God's going to get me through this. I'm not going to be in this situation that long. God's not punishing me, right? You got all the energy. You got all the juice. Then that second watch comes. And that third watch comes. And that hopefulness, that energy, that optimism turns into fear. It turns into weakness. It turns into hopelessness. It turns into defeat. And that's exactly where God wants you. Because he knows that you need him. And he wants you to keep your eyes on him. And he doesn't want you to doubt his power and what it is that he can do in your life. No matter when he steps in this storm. And sometimes we got to go all the way through it. We got to go all the way through it. Because God has purpose for his timing. Trust me. He does the right things at the right time. God created the storm. A lot of times when a storm comes, and look, I'm guilty of it. Oh, this ain't nothing but the devil. This ain't nothing but the devil. This ain't nothing but the work of the enemy. It's the devil. The disciples even said it too. It's a ghost. That can't be God. This ain't nothing but the enemy. We in a boat. It's a storm. And now there's something strange is coming towards us. Jesus created the storm so that he can walk in it. Jesus created the storm so that he could come and get you out of it. Jesus created the storm so that he could calm it. Not you, not your friends, not your financial advisor, not your pastor, not your doctor, not your therapist, not your boyfriend, husband. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. The only thing that matters to him is your soul. Jesus is focused on the eternal perspective, always. And he's not just thinking about you and your life, but how you being transformed, how you being renewed in your mind, how you building your faith and keeping your eyes on God. How does that affect other people? How does it affect your friends? How does it affect your family? How does it advance God's kingdom? Because that's what he wants. He wants souls. And that's what this is all about. So I want you to understand the storm. I want you to embrace the storm. I want you to trust God in the midst of the storm. There are so many things that God told us were going to happen to us in this body, in this world. He told us. And I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes I get mad about it. I'm like, I'm mad about the things that God said were going to happen. Why? He already told us that. What he wants us to do is to lean not to what we understand, but acknowledge him. Hold his hand. Trust his plan and his purpose. So if you're going through a storm in your life right now, whether you're on the first watch or the fourth watch, I want you to know there is somebody that is watching you. And that's Jesus. He's looking at you the whole way through the entire time. And he wants nothing more than to save you. I pray that this information and that this word blesses you again. It was for me tonight, and I hope that somebody got something great out of it. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and all that, and share it with somebody. Look, you are not alone in whatever it is that you're going through. I don't care how alone you might feel. We are all connected. We are all in this life together. And you're going to get through it. I promise you. But it's all about who you are when you step out of that boat. God bless.